You are about to enter a great adventure.
This is Strutting from Gorilla.
All right, folks, welcome back to Season 3 of Strutting from Gorilla. As you can see, it's new look, same Jabronis. We're with you live and in living color. We decided to take the plunge and go video for everybody. Vito, you look good on camera, my man. I love it.
Yeah, I was about to say, I don't know if ratings are going to go up or down with our mugs on this podcast now, but
yeah, it's
no.
a 50-50 shot, so at best. But we're so glad to be back with you guys. There was a little bit of a layoff, like we had mentioned before, but hey, we're back and we're ready to go. So just a reminder, visit our website, struttingfromgorilla.com. From there, you can find links to all our socials, the TikTok, the Insta, all of that. I got a handle for our Instagram here. Vito's got the handle for our X, Twitter, whatever the hell he's calling it these days. But anyway, you can find us wherever you listen to your podcasts. Give us a 5-star rating and review on the old Apple Podcasts, and we would love it. So we got to jump right in today, Vito, because we have been MIA for the last month. We had our LA night interview, which was so cool. We hope you guys are listening to that. And then from there, life just took over. But wrestling has continued to roll on, and it has been firing on all cylinders lately.
Oh, firing left and right. I mean, things are just going crazy. I'm glad we're back. Season 3. I feel like we're progressively getting better here, right? Not worse. Always upgrading. But no, I think it's been great. I think John Cena said it once, right? When the wrestling economy is great, everything's great, and you're seeing it here. I think it's different than years past, like in the Attitude Era or the Golden Era with Hulk Hogan and all the Hulkamaniacs, right? This is going to be a lot different. It's a different feeling. I got to be honest. I loved when NXT went against AEW, right? I feel like the first time that happened a few years ago.
Oh, okay. So you talk the old Wednesday night wars that they had.
Yeah, the old Wednesday night wars. But I feel like when that happened, WWE didn't give a shit. They just really didn't care. And it was different this time, right? I mean, they brought in the big guns and they wanted to really squash
that
AEW.
Dude, that cracked me up. I think somebody, I know I'm stealing this from somebody on Twitter or something, but this guy said, yes, WWE may not view AEW as competition. I don't view a mosquito as competition, but when one's on my leg, I still want to squash it. So I think that principle totally applied to their mentality of how they approached this, this random Tuesday night Dynamite that was going to be there. It was only preempted because, what was it? The playoffs, right? So they got moved to the different night. And just because of that, there was suddenly this competition where they said, okay, so we're gonna have John Cena, we're gonna have Paul Heyman, we're gonna have LA Knight on there, we're gonna have Asuka, we're gonna have Jade show up. Oh, and by the way, we're also gonna have the Undertaker, just to come in.
But you can feel the energy, right? As a fan watching, you can just feel it. Elevates the wrestlers. There's a purpose for what they're doing, not just the
Vince Russo.
Yeah, and not just your 50th hour. Yeah, and not just your 50th hour of television for the week, because they have 10 different episodes of wrestling every week now. It is a purpose to it. You have a desire to win, and it's not just against your peers, it's against another competition. And I love it. I love every second of it. And it's been great having this second tier company, but it's even elevated. And we've talked about this before in our podcast, Mikey. It's elevated other promotions like NWA and TNA, right? And even GCW to some degree. It's getting more eyeballs on the product, and that's always good. And I enjoy it because it makes for more compelling television, right? And it gives wrestlers a place to go. Look at Edge, right? We all had the shock return. I guess it wasn't really a shock. I felt like we all knew this was going to happen. It was a rumor that just was going on forever after his, lackluster send off on SmackDown. When have you ever seen a wrestler retire on, especially one of like Edge's caliber, retire on a weekly show? Right,
dude. That's
like,
what happens when you can't agree on money. They're just
right.
All right, here you go. This is your send off. You get to fight Sheamus, which isn't. I don't want to knock Sheamus. The dude is a great brawler, but I feel like they could have done more to sort of send him off. And I think that there's a little bit of a sour grapes there. I think maybe on Edge's part.
Is he a needle mover? I feel like the guy has gotten enough chances, right? And I can't get behind him. I'm not saying I don't like him.
Yeah,
he doesn't do it for me. Like, and I don't know what it is.
Well, I think what you're talking about is something that everyone's getting too caught up with anyway. Is this, well, what's a needle mover? What's not? I mean, it's hard to like define that.
It's not.
Everybody, I guess.
No, it's not. You know who's a needle mover?
Roman Reigns.
No, well, yes, but LA Knight, right?
Mm-hmm.
He willed his way into being a needle mover, right?
Okay.
And so he was kind of in the opposite spectrum where people were just chanting his name. He was selling merchandise, and WWE was just like, we're still going to make him lose. I don't know. He's not a top guy. And finally, I feel like, listen, do you put him in a title match right away? No, right? And I think what they're doing now is great. Like, the guy clearly is what people want to see. But Sheamus, for me, is just not a guy who moves it. But we digress. Yeah. We go down this rabbit hole all day.
I was going to say, this is our season premiere already, and we are all over the place because we haven't been recording on a consistent basis. So we have all these thoughts, folks. So bear with us because it's just we're just jumping around from interest to interest about our wonderful world of wrestling. But I want to touch on something you said about this being a golden era of sorts for wrestling. And I completely agree with you. Look, you named off all of those different organizations. I'll include Impact on that too. All of them are doing well. I think it's wonderful. There's a whole different approach to even friendly competition now. Whereas before, like you said, during the Attitude Era, it was like super tribal to the point where you wanted people within companies wanted other companies to go out of business. And that's not healthy competition. That's not how you build up organizations. That's not how you build up pro wrestling. And I think they're all finally realizing that. Even WWE, for all of the shit we had given them over the years about the things that they used to do about pretending somebody's career didn't exist before they started in WWE, just recently on their pay-per-view, they mention both Cody and Finn Balor as leaders of the Bullet Club. That's a big deal. And I know it doesn't feel like a lot because it's just sort of like a passive statement, but you have to understand for years and years and years, the Vince McMahon mandate has been when you start here, nothing else you did before then matters. And they're starting to change that. You can even hear it in the way they talk about wrestlers. LA Knight, for example, they'll say he might be a rookie to WWE, but he's not a rookie in this sport. And so they are already saying this guy's had a career before he came here. And that's important to acknowledge that he's not just sort of Jamoke coming off the street that they decided to strap the rocket to.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to those are great points, Mikey. And I think it comes down to the fact that I don't want to feel and I don't want to be treated as a fan that I'm a stupid person, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we're not stupid. Like, and I think that makes a huge difference. And it really is great. Here's my question for you though, and because I've heard you talk about this plenty of times, right? Mm-hmm. And so in this Wednesday night battle, or I guess Tuesday night recently, what did they use to measure the success of the programming? They use the ratings.
They use the ratings, but they were also using trends. They were using Twitter back and forth. Who was trending number one? Who wasn't?
Oh, interesting.
I was noticing that all night. You could see it, that there was like the fighting going on. You could see that at one point Dynamite was up there, at one point NXT was up there, and it was kind of swapping back and forth. That was pretty cool.
Interesting.
Even though I like kind of despise Twitter. That was one moment where it served a purpose for me.
But is that only Twitter? Like, I feel like I use a hashtag. I could hashtag on Facebook. I could hashtag on Threads. I could hashtag on whatever. But yeah, my point was, is that really, you mention this all the time, that, ratings doesn't really matter because a lot of the times you're not really watching live. But again, I think it's still the barometer, right? I mean, back in the day, I bet it would have still been higher because it was your only platform to watch wrestling. You had to watch it live, right? Or, I mean, maybe you could record television. TiVo was a thing at that point, but
TiVo.
Yeah, little bouncing TV. It's great. I'm loving it. It's great for entertainment purposes, and
it's a great time to be a wrestling fan, dude. That's the bottom line here. It's great. Great.
It is.
It's good TV. When was the last time you can say WWE has been consistently doing well in terms of how they're presenting stories to us on a weekly basis? That almost never happened for a long time, or it would happen in spurts.
True.
It's been fairly consistent.
Yeah, I wonder how much of that is, I mean, competition versus, obviously someone else in charge. I think
we'll take it.
100%, 100%. That leads me to our next point. I am so happy that we get to see something different other than Vince McMahon. I think for years this industry wouldn't be where it is without Vince McMahon, and love or hate the guy or whatever you want. But it was time, and we've been saying that for many. In fact, that's most the reason we started this podcast. I think to get our venting out for wrestling, and a lot of it was just the garbage we were getting, and it's been so much better. And you've talked about it, and you could touch on it here. Like, what have you seen that's been a huge difference between Triple H running things and versus Vince McMahon? And then also, the other piece of this that I want you to touch on too is Tony Khan. Like, what's the difference between him and WCW or Eric Bischoff? Like, I think there's a big difference in those two competitors right now.
All right, so it's two questions. So one is, what do I think the difference is between Triple H and Vince in terms of how all of this gets presented?
And then also the competition. But hey, let pause for a second there. Pause. You're lucky I didn't add 5 questions. Okay.
I know. This is I had to keep track here. It's like, all right, so what the hell is he asking me? All right. So I'll go with your first one to start things off. With Triple H, from my own experience watching him when he was down in NXT, when he first started taking the reins over of what it's, I think Vince was sort of testing him. What happens when you get the reins for something completely? You're in charge of running this show. And what he did with NXT was wonderful. The way he structured those takeovers, no more than 5 matches. Every match had a good amount of time. Every match had a video package. Every match meant something. And not every rivalry, not every superstar ended up on that card. Sometimes it just didn't work out that way. That's the way it was. Fast forward to now. What are you noticing about the pay-per-views?
Much easier to watch.
They're much easier to watch. Shorter. There's about 5 on the card. Everyone has a story. Everyone has a video package. And every match seems to actually mean something. There's not that kind of fluff in between, or sort of like the bullshit. Backstage segments are kind of abbreviated now. They're not as long as they used to be. They're not as... Honestly, they were just like a slog to sit through, those Vince McMahon backstage segments, because they largely meant absolutely nothing. I think maybe I'm biased towards Triple H because I just like the way he tells stories, but what he does with backstage segments does a good job. It furthers some story along. It gives you a little hint that even if it's a rivalry that's not on the pay-per-view card tonight, it's just reminding you, hey, this story is happening too, and keep tuning in to Raw and SmackDown to sort of follow that story, even though they didn't have a match on the card tonight. So in terms of how Triple H is doing it as opposed to Vince, Triple H is taking, I think, a more almost I want to say like a more pro wrestling sort of approach to this rather than a sports entertainment approach to this. Vince is, the pageantry is still there with WWE. I think that's always just going to be part of their DNA and how they present stories to people. But the way Triple H is doing it, I think he's really trying to focus more on like the drama of the story. What's driving you to that match? Like, we'll get into this later, but kind of what they're doing with the Bloodline and how there's one thing is happening in one storyline and it's impacting the rest of the show. It permeates. Like the Bloodline's essentially like a mafia family that just like crumbled. So there's a vacuum of power and people are sort of coming in and there's all these different little factions. And I like the way that they're doing that right now. But anyway, that's an aside. So that answers your question about Triple H. I just think he's much more current on how to tell a story that's going to keep people captivated and entertain them. And Vince was just, the time just passed him by. I think that just happens. It'll happen to all of us at some point. We have that. I'll answer your next question too about Tony Khan and what was it that is he like WCW or is he running it similar to WCW?
Well, I was just saying, what's the difference in the competition now versus then, right? I felt like before when we were WCW versus WWF, right? It was very cutthroat. Like I felt like there was an extreme hatred for one another. So it was very different. I mean, you had people giving away results of pre-tape matches, right? You had surprise people coming over and it felt real. I mean, there was a legit hatred for one another at that point. It was like people were going for blood, right? Because they were trying to put each other out of business, right? I don't feel as though that's what either one of these companies are trying to do. And I don't know if I like it better or like it worse. And that's kind of my question to you is, do you see that difference? And like, does that make it less compelling to watch either brand?
For me, no, not at all. It doesn't bother me in the least. I think there's plenty of bullshit that happens between them. There's these little Twitter wars that happen where Tony Khan will get up there and he'll reply to something WWE posted about NXT or doing everything for that little Tuesday night like brief war that they had. But I mean, Tony just needs to stay away from Twitter. I mean, he comes off like a child sometimes because he just gets too up. He takes certain things personal. It doesn't get to the point where, like you were saying, there's a bunch of hatred there, but it does get to a point where he goes on these little Twitter rants about how AEW is doing great in this demographic and that demographic. And it's almost like he's trying to prove himself. And man, you don't need to do that. There's nothing for it. So he needs to just stay off of it. Stay off of Twitter. Stick to just simple promotion for the show. AEW Dynamite is tonight at 8. Make sure you tune in. That's it. It doesn't because I don't think it works for him when these things happen. All the things that these idiots write on the dirt sheets and all this stuff. All he does is he's giving them more fodder, more for them to feed off of. So. And it's the one thing he complains about too. So I think he's got to stop self-sabotaging here. Just back off, let it happen. WWE is always gonna do what they do. There's no way to stop it at this point. So you have to accept and adapt.
Yeah. No, I got you. I just felt like Bischoff was more cutthroat, and maybe it was because money. Maybe
Bischoff had way more to prove. He wasn't coming in. He didn't have a dad who owned an NFL franchise. Do you know what I mean? He didn't have that kind of financial backing right from the get-go. The dude was coming in like doing news reporting. Like, come on.
I mean, his dad was Ted Turner. Ted Turner had a lot of money.
His dad.
Yes, basically. But yeah, I mean, Tony Khan is like a fan of wrestling. He came in, and I just don't know that. I mean, I guess it's no different. I mean, Bischoff had no prior wrestling background. He was a TV producer and he figured out a way to make it happen. I'm curious to see how it all pans out. But it's great television. I enjoy it, and it gives us something refreshing and a different look. Like okay, moving on from this, Like there's been a lot that's gone on. So let's talk about a couple of the things, right? Obviously, there've been some wrestlers that have moved back and forth. We got Edge, which is a big one. We have Jade Cargill going to WWE, right? And like those are some big moves. And I'm curious to see how that works out. But I mean, Edge to AEW, it felt weird. Like, so we knew it was all coming, and I was watching the pay-per-view live, and I knew he was coming out, and I was like trying to figure out when he would come out, what he was going on. And I mean, they made it pretty obvious when they put Christian in the main event. Like, not that he's not like he's doing some of his best work right now. I think we've talked about this.
Yeah.
But you knew it was coming. But when I saw him come out, it just felt very strange, right? Like it felt very unnatural, and I'm happy he went there. I think, you know, him as a part-timer it just wasn't working at WWE, and it was great he had his run and he was able to come back. But if he's going to come back full-time and really give this a go before he retires, I'm all about it. And he's got some fresh faces to go against.
You're right, he does, and that was, I think, part of what he's even said in interviews, that they reached a point where there was only so much left that he could do. He had done everything that he could possibly do in WWE. Hell, he even main evented that first WrestleMania with fans again following the pandemic. And there's him, Roman, and Daniel Bryan. Speaking of, right? So,
which is a good match.
It was a great match. Great match. That visual of Roman pinning both of them, it was amazing. It was amazing. But anyway, back to Edge. I think what people might struggle with, it feels strange because you're so used to one person for over 20 some odd years in one system. They've been presented in one way. So there's always going to be a little resistance to change. And now that he's in AEW, it's a different presentation. It's a different flavor of ice cream, right? Everybody keeps talking about this now, like the flavors of ice cream thing. Like, I heard MJF during the press conference do it. I've heard Triple H talk about this, but it is kind of true. Like, you can like one over the other, but it doesn't, you know, they're both just different flavors of ice cream. There's people that like both of them. So I think for Edge, he's just trying out a whole different system. I think it opens him up for a lot of new possibilities in matches he can have. Also, we can't deny that he's long talked about wanting to end his career with Christian. Yeah. And this allows him to do that. So if nothing else, whatever, we don't really know how long that contract is. He's, you know, that first Dynamite, he was talking about he wanted to be here for the 8th and the 12th anniversary, and like, get out of here. But I mean, you might be here for a year, and that's and just doing a little farewell tour. But it gives him the best chance to end his career the way he would like to. And for a guy whose decision was taken from him all those years ago with the neck injury, I can respect it. I can understand why he would want to do this. But as fans, people struggle to just accept any change at all, especially wrestling fans. We're kind of the worst.
Well, I think it's because you have these storylines and you get invested, and the ones that you're super invested in that are good storylines, you want to continue to see. It brings back nostalgia. It brings back the good storylines that you're used to and what you're invested in. And I'll be honest, I don't like change either, and it takes me a little bit. Every time something new happens, I tell you I hate it, and then I'm like, oh, actually, I like it, you know. So, and then I'm always wanting that surprise. I always want that. What's going to happen next? Like, you know, the amount of times I've been wrong about telling you someone was going to come out.
I'd be rich if I had money every time you made a terrible prediction.
Oh, terrible. But you know what? It's what keeps me watching, and it's exciting, and I'm enjoying every second of this. But
yeah,
I'm curious to see what happens with Edge. I mean, here's the thing about Edge. I'm not sure he's as big of a draw as people think. Like, it was great to have him back on WWE. But I don't put him in the same echelon as like an Undertaker or Shawn Michaels or like a Stone Cold. Like, sure, he's a big wrestler. It's a great grab to have for AEW, and I think it'll progress, and there's a lot of opportunity for him there. But I just don't know that it's a big needle mover. Word of the day, right? I don't know that he's a big needle mover, and I don't know that he does it for me personally. So we'll see. There's a lot over there that he can do, and we'll continue to watch. But the thing I'm curious about is, so go ahead, finish your thought on it.
I disagree with you on this wholeheartedly because I think your expectation is that it's going to be like WWE. It's like you can't hold AEW to a WWE expectation. It's not. It'll never work. This is what we're talking about. It's two different presentations of wrestling. You can't say that it's not a needle mover. Yeah, WWE loves that shit. They love the needle mover stuff, but like AEW doesn't really they don't approach it that way because there isn't the WWE's system is usually built around like one guy. And it sort of like feeds the system of the other people in the different tiers. Whereas I think in AEW, it's sort of like, we'll bring in this guy, and then we'll bring in this guy, and then we'll bring in this guy. And it's all just sort of, there's not too much story focus. There is story. Don't get me wrong. There's story. But their focus is just presenting really good wrestling matches. That has been their shtick from the get-go. And I think it's taken all of us a little while to sort of catch on to that. The people that have been used to just watching WWE every week. So when you say it, like Edge isn't going to be a needle mover, like you don't know yet. You got to let him get established in there first. He's been in there for less than a month.
Listen, Cash. All right, I'm totally against what you're saying.
Yeah, I know you are.
I'll phrase it like this: how many times have you turned on a WWE pay-per-view when Edge was actually wrestling full time, and you're like, "Oh, I can't wait for Edge's match today"? Outside of when he was in a tag team with Christian, when he was a singles guy,
you're out of your mind.
No.
You are just ignoring a whole piece of history. Then he had a great singles run. Come on.
I hated Edge's singles run when he was champion. I would shut the TV off. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't think he was a great wrestler. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't think he's a great wrestler. I think he was great as a tag team wrestler, and it was exciting when Christian was there. I'm actually going to go ahead and point this back out. All right,
so you're exposing yourself because then it has nothing to do with AEW. It's just about Edge.
Yeah, but if AEW is about the wrestling and less about the storylines, I don't think Edge is going to be very good. I really don't. I don't. And I'm going to go so far as to say is I think Christian is better than Edge. That's my point. I think you're going to look back.
Point, maybe you're right.
I think in general.
However, it doesn't just negate what this dude had been doing. This guy had a great run when he came back from injury. From 2020 on,
it was all right.
Some good.
It was all right. It was all right. His greatest match was the triple threat match, and it was mostly because Daniel Bryan and Roman Reigns were in it. I don't know that Edge added value to it, and I thought it was a great triple threat match again. But I'm not sure that you put Edge against Daniel Bryan. Like, okay, so you have the storyline.
Well, that's a possibility now.
Right, but you have the storyline with Finn Balor, right? And how many times did we come on the show and we're like, it was too long, or it wasn't that great, or again, I'm not seeing it, so we'll have to see. I think at least when you had CM Punk, as much of a toxic person as he was, I would want to watch television because I knew he was coming on. I knew he was going to be entertaining to some degree. Love or hate the guy, but
Vito, you thrive on chaos, and that he is an agent of chaos.
I do thrive on chaos.
He just like drew you in.
Yeah,
and Edge is just like a dad. He's just a dad who's wrestling again.
Yeah,
that's it.
Edge is gonna come out and get all ramped up and do a spear 5 times and have his crazy eyes and do a concerto.
All right, like flip it, because people think the same thing about CM Punk, except he's just going to come out and he's going to bitch about the company he worked for before and how he's always the victim.
It's true.
We could play this game all day.
We could
ping pong.
It's true, but I'm standing behind this, Cash, and you watch. He already came out and they showed a clip and it was probably because it was on Collision, and it was probably the 10th hour of the show, but there was like nobody in the stands. Did you see that?
I did see that. I actually, this is a good segue because I'm trying to understand what is that all about. What,
I don't know.
how are they struggling with that? Because they do have they have good wrestlers on that roster. Like,
yeah,
and Collision, I think overall is the better show than Dynamite.
You could be right. I honestly haven't watched them. Again, I'm not sitting in on a Saturday night. I struggle when the pay-per-views are on Saturday or Sunday. Well, not so much Sunday, but Saturday. Number one, I don't know when. For me, it's like, oh, hey, pay-per-view. It's Sunday night, and then all of a sudden, next thing I know, it's like, oh, it was on, Saturday afternoon at 1:00. Like that bothers me. Keep it consistent. I just want some consistency with the timing. Okay. But
Vito's complaining because he doesn't watch the product enough to get the marketing that they have when they say there's going to be a Saturday pay-per-view. So he just operates under the assumption that it should just be the way he's always expected it.
Yeah, exactly.
And now you're pissed off about it. No wonder why you love CM Punk.
Yeah, it's like when they do, London games in the NFL at 9 a.m. Like I wake up and I'm like, oh shit, there's a game on. Oh, they're already in the third quarter. Oh, okay, interesting. I didn't know that. But anyways, I don't know. It was a weird. I saw the picture and I was like, oh, that's interesting. But I've seen that a few times, and I just wonder. I know when we went to Dynamite, they taped Rampage afterwards, and by that time we were 5 hours into the show, and it was 11:00 on a Wednesday. A lot of people left. I know Collision's a bit different. It's on a Saturday, but. I don't know what the dynamic there was, if it was just a freak thing, but it was interesting. But we'll see. Time will tell how Edge does. But let's move on from Edge. Let's move on from Edge. Let's go to.
Well, let's jump on that picture for a second. We're going a little rogue here, but so that picture and some of the comments around it have been about lagging ticket sales for AEW, and so you wonder. Are they choosing the right venues? Are they starting to? I know at one point they've started to try some of the, I guess you could call them like the regular venues, the stuff that if you were going to a WWE show, they'd be at like TD Garden here in Boston versus, the Agganis Arena or something like that. So are they moving too quick? Did they overestimate how much they'd be able to sell in those? It's not a knock against them. I mean, you can't hurt to try, right? You want to test the market a little bit, but what do you think?
Look, I'm just going to give you my personal opinion, and you could completely disagree with this, but as a guy who likes consistency, I want to know who's going to be on a show, right? When you have 2 shows a week, 3 shows a week, and there's no consistency, it's rare you have people like Stone Cold, The Rock, these big superstars. And I don't care what anybody tells you, but those are going to move needles. Those are going to get people that want to go. They're going to make me want to reach out and say, oh my God, Stone Cold's on a show. Like, I know I want to watch this. I know I want to be at this venue. There's a reason when John Cena comes back, ticket sales go up, right? But when you don't know, I don't know what show MJF is going to be on every day. I don't know. Is he going to be on Collision? Is he going to be on Dynamite? I mean, I know he's typically on Dynamite.
They usually will tell you.
Right. But if I know consistently, I will watch it more often, But when you don't know, and then like, for instance, when we went to AEW, there was nobody there. What big superstar was there? Our biggest thing was FTR, which is great. I love FTR, but that is not going to drive me to want to be there. Like, CM Punk would have, MJF would have, and he was on Rampage as an announcer. But like back in the day, even when AEW first started, there was one show. You knew you were going to get a certain amount of guys. They had a small roster. You knew you're going to get that every week. Now you got 2 shows. Sometimes they're on, sometimes they're not, and to me, it makes me have less desire to turn that on or even possibly go to the event. So that's my personal opinion, Cash.
I wonder if that's about them catering to their core audience, so the people that are the diehards of AEW, they're going to be watching no matter what. It's the same with WWE in that regard. But one thing that maybe they're struggling with is how do you both cater to that and then also open doors for more general audience to come in? Like some of the people that are sort of just casual viewers, they're not watching every single week, but they will tune in occasionally throughout the month and maybe even watch Fastlane or something when it's on Peacock because it's free, right? They don't have to pay for it. But how do you get some of those people to also then watch some AEW or to even put money up to go to a show? I know some people talked about the ticket prices too that went back. They sort of skyrocketed for AEW, where at one point they were a bit more affordable and they were kind of like discounted. So people were more apt to go, which is, I mean, hey, that's why we went. The tickets weren't that bad. And we were like, hey, that's great. That's cheaper than going to SmackDown right now.
Right. But let me ask you this question. How often do you watch NXT on a Tuesday? Like live?
I don't watch it live. I watch it on Peacock like the day or two after.
Okay. Did you watch it live this past week?
No.
Okay.
No, I enjoyed it. I heard all about it, but
how often do you watch?
I don't have the time.
How often do you watch Dynamite?
I DVR it, so I know it's like a dated thing. So that's kind of my approach. Is I rarely sort of watch these things live. Like maybe SmackDown just because it's a Friday night and I might just be hanging around and it'll just be on. But
what will make you watch it live?
Because I usually know someone's there that I want to watch. Yeah, amazing. I know already. But you have such a criteria for who it is you even want to see.
No.
That you just say like, I don't know. You know,
no.
I won't even tune in on the assumption that the champion of the company will be there.
No,
and he's been there every week. I don't know if MJF will be there. The dude has been there every week since August. What more do you want? You want him to come to the house and pick you up and take you to the show?
Yes, maybe I would, but no, my point is like for me, even me personally, you say casual wrestling fan. I mean, shit.
I've become one.
I was gonna say
casual in how I watch it because you can't devote that kind of time anymore. I don't have that kind of time.
Right. So my point being, this is exactly it. If there was one show, you'd be much more willing because you can invest your time in the storylines. When AEW was around, Dynamite was the only thing. I guarantee you're watching that more live than you would now because there's so much content you have to scroll through and pick the stuff that matters. If they just concentrated and put the stuff that mattered with the guys that move the needle that make you want to watch, it would be much more, you'd have a lot more people watching it. And back in the day,
you're talking about this is why Triple H is doing a good job.
Exactly.
Because 100% the people in there that are drawing in viewers. So he's putting people that should be in those positions.
100%. But he also, when we were younger and you were watching all the time when there were superstars like Stone Cold, The Rock, Hulk Hogan, even on WCW, Hulk Hogan, you wanted to watch. You were much more willing to take that time and watch. Yes, we were younger. You had more time. That's fine. But guarantee if it was today and they were those same superstars that you were invested in that made you put eyeballs on, you would watch.
I don't know, man. It's tough. I think it's tough only because, like you had mentioned before, that yes, the ratings were used for the whole Tuesday night thing, but you're talking about the way everybody watches TV now. It is different. I mean, I don't think I think it's rare. Even if it is a good show, you're thinking to yourself, I don't want to fucking watch the commercial, so I'm just going to DVR it and then I can fast forward through it.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the way I'm approaching it. I don't feel like dealing with commercials, so I'm going to record it. I'll just watch it the day after. I'm still going to enjoy it, even if I'm not sitting there watching it then and there in the moment. Now, what I think you're touching on though is, listen, like we can't deny the fact we're old. Okay. So people that are younger than us watching wrestling interact with it so much differently than you and I are. They're using socials at the same time as they're watching it. I mean, how many people are live tweeting, like going live on Insta about it? Like you can't deny that, right?
Yeah.
So those are people that are going to benefit from watching it live in the moment because you need that sort of interaction, that sort of engagement, right? We're not like that.
No.
A lot of people are like, all the different demographics are sort of watching wrestling a little bit differently.
Yeah.
So I'm like, because I don't need to like be posting shit on Twitter about like my thoughts on Rampage.
Yeah, soon enough.
Really none. I have no thoughts on Rampage. I I can't tell you the last time I watched the full episode.
Yeah, let me just put that on
it's
YouTube.
Useless to me.
Put it on YouTube.
Yeah. It's just glorified dark now.
Yeah, Let's move on. We've been talking about this far too long. We haven't even talked. My next question was going to be, all right, so Edge, AEW, Jade Cargill, WWE. I know you're a big
Jade fan.
Big Jade fan. You were talking about her before she was big in AEW, right? Like you were like, hey, you got to watch this girl. She's the next China. She's built like her. She's, blah, 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 blah. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think, is she going to get the Cody Rhodes treatment, or is she going to get the squash? Like, I can't imagine the women in WWE who have been kind of leading this charge are ready to give up their top spots, but it's great to have more competition there. And I'm curious to hear Mikey Cash's 2 cents on this.
Well, one, it's good to have competition, even internal competition. And that's one thing Vince did well. I mean, it was manipulative in the way he did it to people, but you provoke that internal competition with people and it will translate to the screen. And so I think already they're setting it off on a good foot, because I think she's getting closer to the Cody treatment than not, because they already made it a big deal when she showed up during the pre-show at Fastlane. She shows up in like the limo. She comes out. She's got like the get up on, and Triple H comes out and meets her and greets her and like walks her to the back. That's a big deal. They're showing that it means something, that he is personally coming out there to welcome her to WWE. She's shown up on all 3 brands. She's been on SmackDown. She's been on Raw. She was on NXT. So now you're wondering, well, where exactly is she going to show up? And I'm kind of curious about that as well. I don't know if they'll give her a run on NXT to get her legs under her and to work with some of the younger talent or what. But what I do like is that she's already starting to have interactions with current roster females, one of them being Charlotte right off the jump. That was a big move right there. And I think they have big plans. I think they see the potential. It's all going to be about execution. And that I can't speak to. I don't know what's going to happen there. I have a good feeling about it. I think if you watched her evolution of in-ring skill over the last, year and a half, she's come a long way. There's been some duns in there. I get it. But that's part of the growing pains. She's just not growing up in a traditional wrestling system anymore, where she could be in a territory for a couple of years and get her shit under her and then come in and she's golden, right? She's polished. No, she's sort of learning on the job. That's the wrestling business nowadays. And that's the way AEW was handling it. But she had a great coach. Brian Danielson. Damn, always go back and forth on that. But he was training her. I think she's going to have access to some of like the best wrestling minds through WWE's Performance Center. So sky's the limit for her. I can't wait. Honestly, my hope is that she's successful enough that we eventually get maybe like Jade and Bianca, like they are kind of similar body types, and they're sort of like 2 powerhouses that can go against each other. That'd be really interesting from a female perspective to have that. Because you always see like the big guys in WWE, like when it's like 2 giants fighting each other, like you could have something like that. It's like these 2 powerhouse women, both kick ass, both incredibly athletic, both incredibly charismatic. What happens when they face each other?
Yeah. I'm just more curious if she can wrestle, because I think she can, man. I think she can. Yeah. My point is, I mean, they didn't give any time to women on AEW. She maybe had. They still don't. I know that, number one. Number two, all she did was squash most people in AEW. So listen, I think it's a great time. I'm being facetious here.
No, I know you are.
But it is funny. Like, she had like the Goldberg treatment. So let's see what she can do. I mean, she can talk. She's got the build and the presence. She's got the it factor. Now let's see if she can hang with the Charlottes and put on a good match, or the Bianca Belairs or the Becky Lynches of the world. Because that's otherwise she's going to be really exposed if she goes in there and she can't wrestle against Charlotte. That's going to be it's going to be a quick decline.
Well, exactly. I think just the caliber is different. Not that the women in AEW aren't good wrestlers, but what I
Correct.
think is they are very rarely put in the best position to shine.
Yeah.
And I think she's going to get more opportunity in WWE. They're just, it's just like LA Knight says, it's just a fact of life that WWE has a way more developed women's division. It's just better overall.
Yeah.
It has TV time. Matches mean something. People get invested. I mean, look at Becky and Trish, that cage match.
Yeah.
Dude, that was an amazing match. And it was the culmination of like a 5 or 6 month feud. Tell me the last time anything in AEW went past like a couple of weeks.
I agree with you.
Maybe the Julia Hart stuff that she's doing with Sky Blue right now, but that's even that. It's like minuscule what they're giving them, and they're making it work. Thank God.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, 100%. But we'll see how she does. Listen, I was being, like I said, I was being facetious. I think it's great. I personally, I think she's got the look for WWE, like I said. But if you're asking me, hey, if you took anyone from that women's division AEW and you wanted to bring them over, she would be probably top 2. But I think she'd be number 2. I think Britt Baker would be a much more compelling match to see against like Becky Lynch or I mean, she seems to have that. She can have those matches and hang with those people, but again, not the topic of what we were talking about. So it'll be interesting to see. I think this is going to be a telling sign to see if WWE brings people over and will actually. I mean, they've held their own with Cody. So
are you referring to like the old WCW treatment, like when somebody would come over from WCW or from TNA and they would just get absolutely jobbed out? Yeah. Well, that's the difference in Triple H running it rather than Vince. I think Triple H will ultimately want, like you always used to say, what's best for business. And if that means putting somebody that was in another company in a position of prominence here, okay, it's going to sell tickets. Sure, let's do it.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, again, I think you're right. I think it might be different. And Cody's different. He was the WWE guy to start. Like it's not like he's a homegrown WCW or AEW guy, and Jade was or is. So we'll see how it goes. But I'm curious to see how that pans out. Before we end here, though, there was obviously we've been talking about it for multiple episodes, but the Bloodline, like obviously that's a big thing coming over the last few years. What are your thoughts on it now?
Well, first, I need to retract my statement because I thought you were going to say CM Punk when I said too long. I got ahead of myself thinking I knew what you were going to bring up. But all right, no, the Bloodline, in my view, there's been like no diminishing returns on it. They've sort of shifted the phases of the Bloodline. We were coming out of that time where they were just absolutely dominant in every aspect of the game, and now there's sort of the infighting and sort of the civil war that they had. Roman got pinned for the first time in like 3 years by Jay, and now there's sort of the brother feud that they're keeping them off the brands, and so maybe eventually this is sort of leading to like a WrestleMania brother versus brother kind of match, which will be cool because now people have a lot of investment because they have all of this story, and the story of the Bloodline is really great for me because I enjoy not only. Well, one, the work that Paul Heyman is doing is like second to none. Do you see how he's like, he was so upset that Roman hasn't been on the show and he's been like handling all the stress of sort of the interpersonal relationships of the Bloodline to the point where his hair went gray. And then on Friday, he comes out with Roman and his hair is black again. It's just like,
I didn't notice that.
Suddenly he de-aged. I think even Corey Graves might have mentioned something like Paul Heyman found the fountain of youth now that Roman is back. So it was just really funny. And so I like little things like that. But yeah, Paul Heyman's doing great work with them. Roman, as usual, I mean, he came back and didn't skip a beat, had a great segment with LA Knight. So that's another just little taste of, all right, well, we could be going in this direction. Then you have the stare off with Cody that very same night. Well, we haven't forgotten about that storyline. And then he's also got something with John Cena. And we can't forget that they had their feud a couple of years ago, too. And Cena might always be looking to break that 16-time world championship reign. So, you know, I think as far as the Bloodline goes, they have so many different options. They permeate throughout all of the shows, much like the Judgment Day. And the Judgment Day, to their credit, have also built things up. And a reason I bring them up is because of all of the infighting with the Bloodline. Like I mentioned before, it's the equivalent of when like a mafia family goes down. And now because of that, there's all these other little factions. I mean, the LWO is one of them. Even when you look at Damage Control, that's another one. There's all these like little pockets that are trying to say, oh, we can move in and sort of get some power here. And Judgment Day has probably been the most successful of that. But I really enjoy that approach. It's kind of an interesting take on it. And I haven't really seen that from like a WWE show before.
Yeah, you know, those are really great points. The thing I'm excited about, and I bet you haven't thought of this yet, but think about all of Roman Reigns' opponents, right?
Mm-hmm.
They were all guys that were already established before Roman Reigns. You had Brock Lesnar, who he faced off against a dozen times.
Way too many.
Yeah, mm-hmm. Right. But here's where I think we're in a stage with Roman Reigns where a lot of the other guys, the former superstars, they could develop their partners, the next guy coming up, mm-hmm. right? And now with LA Knight, Roman Reigns has a chance here to develop his own rivalry with someone and excel that guy so they can sell tickets and they can keep Roman Reigns relevant. Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm explaining this in the right manner.
Are you talking something along the lines of like a title change, or are you thinking
No. I'm saying
just
like
to have a title match or have some sort of feud with him can bring him up.
So Stone Cold, do you think of Stone Cold and The Rock, right? Like they both came up, but they had this rivalry against each other for years and obviously had a lot of respect for each other. I'm curious to see if Roman Reigns can elevate his opponents and see, other than someone who's already established, right? Like forget about, it's great to see Roman Reigns versus The Rock, Roman Reigns versus
the marquee
Brock Lesnar, Roman Reigns versus John Cena, Roman Reigns versus The Undertaker. For years, it's been all these guys that already were at a level that was here, and they were trying to bring Roman Reigns up. Now Roman Reigns is up here, and he needs some other guys to bring up to that level. Otherwise, it's going to get stale quickly. And LA Knight's a perfect example because people like him, and he has a chance to be a guy that could be a superstar. But you know, you could say Cody Rhodes, but Cody Rhodes really kind of developed himself over the years in AEW and coming into WWE. But this is a different aspect, right? This is a guy that, you know, you have some potential in LA Knight, and Roman Reigns has a chance here to help elevate him to a level so that he's got more opponents. You think about Stone Cold when he was at a level and The Rock wasn't there, right? Like he had to. What did he do? He ended up turning heel because he needed more opponents. He needed more heels that he could go against, and they didn't have them, right? And so it's interesting to see, and it's an aspect that I'm looking forward to see if he can do that.
No, I mean, not for nothing, Roman is getting up there, so this is about that time where now you got to start looking at who's coming up. You know, how do we keep this machine rolling? Because it can't just be him forever.
Oh, I don't know. I think LA Knight might be older.
That would be wild. Yeah, and LA Knight is a little older than him. So I think the approach, I agree with what you're saying. I think the approach might be a smidge different in how they execute it, especially with LA Knight. But hey, there's no reason that Roman can't have a series of matches, not just with him, but with like maybe some other guys on the roster. I mean, you never know if somebody like a Chad Gable, who I really hold in high regard, I think he has the potential to work that main event style.
Gunther.
Who knows? Gunther too. But the Gunther thing, I almost feel like they want to keep them separate because Gunther's got such a great heel thing going.
Yeah, I know.
Like you almost want to keep it separate. Like maybe later at some point Roman will turn face or something, or you know,
I hope not.
He'll get the John Cena treatment where like, but I'm not saying he goes back to the big dog days. What I'm saying is I think as this version of Roman as we know him could probably be shifted so that it's more leaning on the face side than the heel side.
Yeah.
That's what I think. I think there's a way for them to do it, especially now. He's way more natural. I think he could figure it out where it's not It's not going to be those segments where he was talking about the big show and buying magic beans. Like with those days are done, right? Thank God, right? So we have a much more nuanced Roman Reigns.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, but yeah, I'm very curious to see how that goes. I think the aspect, and which I thought was really cool, and this is the other part about Triple H that I like. I mean, think about, man, Bray Wyatt when he came back and they did that guerrilla marketing, right? Like something like that got me interested. It was fresh, it was new, it was great. But they also did the backstage segment with Paul Heyman and The Rock's daughter, and we talked about this, but it was done in a way that it looked like someone accidentally filmed them doing it, sort of. You could tell it clearly wasn't,
right.
It was the
presentation, right. And,
it wasn't.
So then
Paul
you wonder,
Heyman,
what does that mean? So now people are in their heads thinking, well, is she really going to join the Bloodline? Are they just doing this to get The Rock's attention? What is it? What's the point?
Yeah, and it wasn't done like a WWE 2K style where there was no talking or anything like it. You know what I mean? Like,
was it just the mouth room there?
On their backstage, just hands. What's Paul Heyman doing back there talking to whoever? And no, it was done. It was done well. It looked like someone had like snuck in and actually recorded it like a fan, even though it was on WWE's TikTok or whatever.
They did that kind of stuff when Seth Rollins and Riddle were having their thing. It was a lot of found cell phone footage from parking lots when they would just see each other in passing and start yelling at each other. That was really cool. They just testing out different presentations.
I mean, you can't do it all the time, but I mean, it's different. It's to me, it's a change up. Very cool.
Welcome change up.
Yeah, and I think that's the stuff that they need to have because it's got to be different.
Well, I mean, if we keep going here, our episode's going to be as long as Roman Reigns' title reign. So, what? Any last thoughts here as we're wrapping up?
No, I'm excited. It's been a while since we've been on here. I think season 3 is going to be great, and we're getting into the winter months where us in the Northeast like to hibernate, so we'll have more time to get on here, just like in the past. So, hopefully, we'll have some more guests this season.
We're working on it.
We're getting there, and I'm excited, Mikey Cash. I think hopefully we'll see a lot more of our special guest, Mike Sarge Riley from 98.5 The Sports Hub, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I'm just glad to be back in the saddle with you, Vito. I always love when we get to sit here and talk about wrestling during the summer.
Why, Mikey? It's because I elevate my guests when my co-host.
You elevate your guests. Yeah, you in an escalator. All right. So anyway, more terrible jokes aside. Listen, folks, we are glad to be back in here. We're trying this whole new format where we're going to be doing some video. We're still going to be putting the podcast out there. So keep an eye on your podcast feeds for that. We're working on getting some very special guests with us from the world of pro wrestling, and we will keep you all updated on that. But until next time, this is all for today, and keep on strutting, jabronis.